I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I've seen literally so many people making the comparison and now I can't not see it. It does kind of remind me of Pokemon, and the new characters kind of do remind me of gym leaders a little bit. And I know there's a little bit of mixed feelings about the new teasers we got with Natlan, that it's the nation of war, but it seems to be a little lighthearted. Well, I really think the story will have a darker tone to it when we actually get into the story and get into Natlan, but I think people are confused by the whole theme of war and what that actually means. So in this video, I want to talk about what we know about Natlan so far, characters, lore surrounding the region, what we know, and then I'll give a brief speculation on what I think will play out in different scenarios. So let's start with what we know. What is the general theme around Natlan? Well, it's war and dragons. But more importantly, the war aspect is a tournament in the honor of the Pyro Archon, Murata. War in Natlan is less about everyone just running around killing each other and more like, I guess, like the great tournament like in Dragon Ball Z, where you compete for the honor and glory of the Pyro Archon. Plus, when Natlan actually gave us teasers of Natlan, he literally says that Capitano is throwing his hat in the ring. So yeah, the war aspect of Natlan isn't exactly what I think a lot of people had in mind. It's not a bunch of dragons and humans running around killing each other in different tribes, fighting to the death. I mean, I'm sure that's happened over the years, but that's not exactly what the war in Natlan is. Plus, in the Teyvat trailer, it literally says the rules of war are woven in the womb. The victor shall burn bright, while the losers must turn to ash. When the god of war shares this secret with the traveler, it is because she has her reasons. So I don't know if the tournament is a fight to the death or not, but it could very well be. Natlan is located on the other side of Sumeru's desert region, the Great Red Sand. Natlan is also home to natural hot springs created by volcanic activity, and everyone living within Natlan is grouped or born into different tribes, and these tribes follow their own rules and traditions. Vanessa from Mondstadt, the first ever Grand Master of the Knights of Avonius, was one of these tribes, her and her people. But for some unknown reason, whether it be the nation and its war and tournament, the Pyro Archon, or they wanted to start a new life, they all turned into nomads, her tribe, and left Natlan, wandered the wilderness for generations, and many years later found themselves in Mondstadt. But by the time Vanessa was born, a lot of their culture was lost. They no longer had any ties to their homeland, but they still kept their warrior fighting spirit, which is why, compared to anyone else, even if Vanessa wasn't born and raised in Natlan under their old traditions, and although they lost a lot of their traditions and she wasn't actually raised in Natlan, she was still a fierce warrior, easily able to defeat anyone she come across. You know, it's funny, even though Vanessa was never even raised in Natlan, the fact that the rich nobles in Mondstadt put her in the gladiator ring and she was undefeated, I mean, her people were born and bred to fight in tournaments for the glory of their tribe and their Archon. So Vanessa was just naturally born to do exactly just that. Kind of an interesting detail. Natlan also has a unique breed of dragons called Saurians, and they've undergone a very immense long-term development and evolution, with a large number of them coexisting with humanity. Man, so their dragons evolved too? Like we didn't have enough Pokemon references with this region already. And also, for some reason, people from Natlan don't really like to leave their homeland, which is the game's way of telling us why we haven't really seen many characters or NPCs from Natlan in other regions. Like, we've always been seeing people from Inazuma, Sumeru, Fontaine, well before those regions were released, but we really haven't had a lot of people from Natlan kicking around, and that's why. One notable event that happened in Natlan that we have little detail on is around 1,000 years ago, there was a phenomenon or calamity known as the Turbid Black Tide, and a historical figure in Natlan, Tenok, known to be a renowned and great warrior carrying a giant obsidian club, recruited allies from all the major factions and tribes in Natlan. When Tenok was able to quell the Black Tide calamity, it created a location within Natlan called Mara Javari, which sort of borders almost Sumeru's desert, and this place was described as a sea of ashes, where the wind no longer blows, and now contains a sea of scorching lava. Whatever resulted in his death resulted in the creation of what would eventually be known as Mara Javari. And years later, according to legend, a phoenix dwells within the Mara Javari, which was worshipped by people and seen as a noble creature. At an unknown point in time, the sage known as Lava Walker, created a circlet that could withstand the Sea of Fire within the Marajavari, which the sage's peers and teachers saw this as ludicrous and ordered him to walk into the Marajavari while wearing it. He did so and survived. He continued wandering in and out of the Marajavari for another 100 years until the Sea of Flames finally burned him to ash during his final journey. We also have another Mondstadt resident named Bennett, who was abandoned as a child and taken in as an orphan. He is originally a native from Natlan as well, said to be abandoned at a place known as Hell on Earth, which sounds a lot like Marajavari, although this could be another location as well. Perhaps his parents were exploring this area and perished, and was found by the Adventurers Guild in Mondstadt, taken in, and raised in the Nation of Freedom. We also had a character that was teased in the Teyvat trailer, Isan, who is probably a leader of one of the 6 tribes, because each character in these trailers is really important to the Archon story within that region. So not only will she be an important character in the story, but I also think she will probably enter the Natlan War or tournament as well. It would make sense, but that's just a prediction of mine. Hopefully nobody we care about in the story has to fight this guy who's going to be in the tournament as well, because there'll be a freaking corpse. Don't worry, we're going to talk about him in a second. So we also got teased with 3 new characters, and they seem to have different abilities within the overworld. Natlan's going to be very nature focused with tall mountains, high landscapes, and these new characters and abilities are meant to traverse this land more freely and more fluently. Otherwise, we'd be climbing the tallest mountains we've ever seen, and our stamina hasn't been updated or increased since 1.0, so we'd be screwed. Essentially, like the game already said, the dragons have evolved in unique ways here and coexist with humanity, and that is going to be the abilities that we see being able to travel around in very unique, interesting ways, especially if the landscape is as elevated as people have suggested. We also got a bit of a map tease too here, shown a little bit, even though it is the nation of Pyro and there's going to be a lot of lava, rocks, and warm areas, it's not going to be as grim of a region as people initially thought. One thing I am curious though is if you're going to need Natlan characters to do puzzles, traverse the land more fluently, and actually use some of these abilities. Similar to how only Fontaine characters can use the dive mechanic while swimming in Fontaine waters, and with the Ocean and Numian mechanics, I'm wondering if they'll be giving us a few free Natlan characters to traverse the land with. Speaking of Natlan characters, as for the story and the Archon quest, like I've talked about a million times, so I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the Fatui Harbingers are collecting the last Gnosis. Even though it has been heavily speculated and leaked that both Colombina and Dodore will be in this region, until the developers state this or show this themselves, it's not 100% confirmed. Although they already mentioned Irminsul and the burning of it will be an important plot piece in this region. However, we do know the captain will be here, and like I already said, he's going to throw his hat into the ring. Why is he in Natlan? Well, it's very simple. He is there to do what the Fatui always do, get the Gnosis, and this time it'll be the last one. We know that Project Stuja is also something the Fatui are working on behind the scenes. Does that have something to do? All of the Gnosis pieces and the remains of the third Descender once they have them all. Is that why they need the Dore there? And why would they need Colombina? It is heavily leaked that she's an ancient race or species from Natlan. Maybe a different breed of Syrian dragon or something. Perhaps she will be useful for whatever they resurrect or for whatever they need to do in Natlan. Because remember, resurrection was a theme when shown in the trailer teasing Natlan back in 1.0. And as already predicted, I think the captain will win the tournament, get the Gnosis, possibly even defeat the Pyro Archon in single combat. It would be really cool to see how that plays out. And the Dore will be there to resurrect a Descender, while Colombina might potentially be there to control this Descender. Those are just my guesses though. Feel free to leave yours in the comments on what you think the actual Archon quest will be about and the Fatui's role in Natlan. Because after Natlan, it's just Shesnaya. And then we've done all 7 main regions before Conria, which actually brings us to the Pyro Archon herself, Murata, the Lady of Fire as they call it, and the God of War. And for some reason, there's still a lot of people wondering if it'll be a male or female Archon. It's going to be a female Archon. We've known this since 1.0. I'm not really sure why there's so much confusion on this. I know a lot of people are hoping it's another male Archon. I'm not saying your hopes and wishes are wrong or unjustified, but We've known since day one that the Pyro Archon is a female Archon. They even say in the Teyvat trailer, she'll tell the Traveler her secrets because she has her reasons. We also know that Venti and Zhongli are the only two original Archons, so Murata is not the original Pyro Archon. I'm sure we'll learn very soon what happened to the original. As for her aesthetic and early leaks, there's so many early leaks floating around, so don't get too bent out of shape depending on what you've seen. I haven't seen anything super concrete yet, so before you make your judgment or get discouraged from what you see online, take it all with a grain of salt right now. For me personally, what I'm hoping for out of the Pyro Archon is something like Vanessa, maybe a similar aesthetic, but something more fancy and well suited for the actual God of War. So take something like Vanessa and spruce it up quite a bit, and that's what I imagine the Pyro Archon being. This badass female warrior that's larger than life and the literal God of War in Pyro. That's my hopes for this Archon, but perhaps the original Pyro Archon was like that, and a new Archon is a little bit different, being the successor Archon in that region. We don't really know how that plays out. Venti would probably be able to fill the gaps for us if he didn't take 1,000-year-long naps all the time. But one thing I can say for almost certainty, which I've been talking about for literally almost a year now, the Captain and the Pyro Archon both don't seem or sound like individuals who are going to want to negotiate and play politics like we've had in the last two regions. Sumeru and Fontaine was a lot of MacGyvering behind the scenes and politics. I really don't see these two wanting to talk it out and play games. I think they're going to challenge each other, and the captain's going to try to win the tournament, and perhaps the Pyronosis is the prize. Maybe. Or maybe he forces it to be. By now, the Pyro Archon must have some inclination of what's going on with the Fatui. All the other Archons and the parting with their Gnosis. The other Archons also seem very aware of what the Fatui want to do and almost seem to be okay with it, so I'm sure the Pyro Archon has a very good understanding of what's going on. Again, I'm sure we'll get early leaks very soon of the Pyro Archon. And again, don't get your hopes up, don't get discouraged. I'm sure we're going to get a Natlan trailer like we got with that Fontaine trailer, showing all of the characters and little teasers with the story very soon. Now, as for Natlan in general, the region, I think we're in for a lot of quality of life. We got a lot of quality of life with Fontaine, and word on the street is we're getting a lot of cool new animations with all of the characters we have and new ones. Kind of like how Fontaine updated our character select screen and a lot of little changes. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of that in Natlan as well. Traversing the land of Natlan looks to be insanely fun. Each time we get a new region, they add something totally unique that makes Genshin feel like an entirely new game. Riding the animals, the dragons, I think it's all going to be insanely fun, but I don't think it's going to be as lighthearted as the tone as we've been shown. I know we've only been teased with more lighthearted stuff, but I do think there's going to be some pretty dark and grim areas as well. Lots of lava, volcanoes, so bring some cold water and get ready for that heat mechanic. Bring some cryo characters as well. And with that said, I'm going to wrap up the video there. No sense really speculating more than that when we're going to get a teaser very soon. I do hope you enjoyed the video though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What exactly are you most looking forward to with Natlan? Is it the new characters? Is it the story? Is it the side quests and deeper lore within the region you're excited to learn about? Is it just exploring the new region? Because we're not going to get the whole region right away. It'll probably be like Fontaine where we get a big chunk of that region with each patch leading up to like 4.3 with some sub areas after. Are you looking forward to the new mechanics like riding animals, traversing the land? Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you on the next one. Later.